Before you start identifying your needs within this category of the stability wheel, you're going to want to check out this introductory video so that you have a general understanding of what we're doing here. For additional support completing the stability wheel, I'm not going to be responding to the comments in these YouTube videos, but you can book a one-on-one session with me on my website. There's a link in the description, or you could check out the Love and Liberation Network. We are an online community of people developing secure attachment while learning how to remove hierarchies from our relationships. Every month we focus on one category of the stability wheel. It gives us just enough time to be able to identify our needs and figure out the structures that we need to implement our needs into our life so our life feels integrated and easeful. We celebrate each other, we help each other brainstorm ideas. If you're looking for that kind of support, there's also a link in the description. Hello, courageous beings. This month we are focusing on the social category of the stability wheel. Let's dig in. The first place we're going to look is quality time alone with yourself. Because if our goal is to develop secure attachment, it is so super duper essential that you really spend time attuning to your inner world, knowing your thoughts, knowing your feelings. So we're going to start with how much quality time do you need with yourself? For myself, I have set a goal of just spending 3 hours per week, like a block of time where there's 3 entire hours where I'm not receiving notifications, where I'm not using my devices, and I'm really just like being with myself and doing something that brings me joy. Could be a creative project like writing poetry and singing music, or playing the guitar, journaling, whatever helps me spend some time to bond with myself and to really attune to what is happening in my inner experience. I know some folks will even set a goal of I need to spend 1 week to myself once every 3 months, or at least twice a year or something. So that's also a possibility. I know it is very common to feel resistance to spending quality time with yourself, especially if there's a lot of unprocessed trauma in the body. It can almost feel excruciating to attune to the inner experience. So definitely meet yourself where you're at, don't force it to be too much too soon. You can start as little as 1 hour a week. I'm gonna unplug and just be with myself. Or it could even be every morning I'm gonna meditate for 10 minutes and just attune to my inner world and see what is happening inside of me for 10 minutes at a time. There's no wrong or right way to go with this. You know yourself better than anyone else, so you get to decide. And the way that I use the stability wheel, I just take my best guess, sometimes we don't always know what we need, and that's okay. You can just take a guess, and that can be a starting place. You can experiment for a couple weeks, maybe a month, and then come back to it and see how is that working for you and make any adjustments from there. That's how I've been using the stability wheel, and what I'm finding is that over time, it just gets more and more refined and more accurate, which has been super helpful for me. Okay, so we are living in a freaking pandemic, and so I just want to remind you that this exercise is not about identifying what is accessible to you. It is about identifying your needs. So it is possible that some of your social needs are not accessible in this moment, and that's okay. This practice is just listing out what do you need to be well and balanced. Being that we are living in a pandemic, a really important place to look is what is your energetic capacity to actually socialize with folks through technology. Places to look: texting, phone calls, and video calls. It's really important to put measurements around these needs so that you're able to use it as a guide for yourself. So you can look on the daily level, the weekly level. For example, how many Zoom calls per week do you have capacity for until you start to feel like actually you're falling out of balance and you're not as well as you could be? How much texting do you have capacity for within a single day before you start to feel drained physically? When you're thinking about your needs around in-person hangouts, it's super important to consider how much time alone with yourself do you need in order to recharge your batteries to feel like you're ready to socialize again. If you're introverted, you might need more time to yourself in between hangouts. If you're extroverted, you might find that actually socializing is a source of energy for you. So, like I said, you know yourself better than anyone else. I had to find out the hard way that even if I feel super excited about doing like all these events that I get invited to, I cannot hang out socially with more than like two plans in a day. It's just like too much for me otherwise. Um, so yeah, that's something that Stability Wheel has really helped me identify as I refine it over time. It's been hard for me to say no to things that I feel excited about, but ultimately it keeps me in balance. If I'm overextending myself and if I'm saying yes to everything that feels exciting to me, then like I will feel the ripple effects for weeks. I'm gonna feel under resourced. I might be a little more moody or irritable or cranky. Um, so yeah, what is that limit for you? Like, what is the max amount of social events that you can do within a single day? What is the minimum amount of socializing that you need within a given week in order to feel like, I don't know, like you're not depressed and like feeling super lonely or something like that? And also, what is the max amount of social hangs you can do within a given week? And if you are having to like set a cap at like, okay, as much as I want to do all these things, I really only have capacity for a few of them. So you have to be super selective then about who you're spending time with. So my question for you is, how do you prioritize who you're hanging out with? For myself, I have an intention of, I think of my relationships as an ecosystem that I'm a part of. Um, so yeah, I try not to value like my romantic partners over my non-romantic or non-sexual partners, and so I think of it as an ecosystem with like different rings, like my inner circle, who I spend the most time with, kind of like a middle ring, and then it just keeps going outwards. So for me, I need to spend at least like 1 to 3 hangouts per week with folks in my inner circle. Otherwise, I'm going to start to feel off balance. Something that is also important to consider is work. Because, like, not everybody has socializing happening in their jobs. Like, maybe you do, like, coding or something. But maybe you're doing customer service, or maybe you're, like, yeah, just doing some sort of service, whether it's, like, therapy or what have you. There's so many jobs that exist in the world. So for myself, when I'm doing these coaching sessions with folks, that is a form of socializing. Like, yes, it's work, and it's like me being in relationship with people. So even if it's not like my personal life or whatever, it's like my work life, it's still like taking up my social capacity. So that's important to identify too. It might be possible, especially under capitalism, where the expectation is that you will be underpaid for your labor, where you will be exploited. And like, if you're like, what are you talking about? Read my blog. I go into it. um, but yeah, it's very possible that you might identify that within your work, you might be over socialized. And even if you can't change that right away, imagine just the power in identifying where your energy leaks are happening. It's really important information. So, the invitation here is to consider work not as like this separate part of your life, because with the stability wheel, what we're aiming for is integration. Like, how are you meeting your needs? And we're not gonna just like compartmentalize parts of our life, because you are a whole person. You don't get compartmentalized. Like the impact is real on you, whether it's work or personal or whatever. So that is a place to look. Another place to look, especially within non monogamy, is your capacity for sleepovers. 'Cause it's very possible that you might have multiple folks that you have sleepovers with, including non sexual or non romantic relationships. I know that's true for myself. So for myself, I've identified, excuse me, I will not do more than 2 sleepovers per month. And so that was actually a starting point for me. And I found that, yeah, that I'm just refining it with time as I'm learning what is my energetic capacity. So for me, it's a little more fluid than that. And I'm still trying to figure out the exact number. But for yourself, like what would be a good starting place? Um, what's your max capacity for sleepovers within a given week to where you're not feeling under resourced or out of balance? Um, yeah, I went through a period where I was just having a ton of sleepovers with no boundaries around it, and then I felt completely exhausted and just depleted. So that is what motivated me to include that in my wheel. So, in summary, it's important to put parameters around these things. What is the minimum? What is the maximum? Because really, the stability wheel is your compass. It is your guide to setting boundaries that you need in order to feel well and in balance, which is secure attachment. Your capacity to take care of yourself is secure attachment. Your belief that you're going to be well and safe because you got this, like that is security, you know? And if you feel that sense of security in yourself, it is way easier to feel secure in your relationships.